Hello, I'm Luna, an astrologer and tarot reader of over 8 years, and today we're going to be taking a look at Selena Gomez and Benny Blanco. So upon their most recent engagement, I thought that it would be cool to take a look at their chart, especially now that Taylor is also engaged. I can take a look at their friendship as well if that's something that you guys are interested in. And if you guys are interested in your own personal reading, you can head on over to my store in the description below. There is currently a 25% off sale. This is a big, huge sale for this upcoming eclipse season, and book it before it's gone because I do make limited spots for these eclipse season sales. So let's take a look at what's going on here for them. Before I move on though, I do offer Synastry readings, birth chart readings, composite chart readings, career, love. You just purchase your reading and let me know what you would like the focus to be and then ask your questions. So let's take a look at their synastry. On the screen we have a double wheel. On the inner circle in blue we have Selena Gomez's birth chart, and then on the outer circle in red we have Benny's chart. We don't have a birth time for him, but that is okay. We can see how his chart falls into her chart. So first thing I want to talk about is the benefic conjunction on Selena's midheaven. So Benny has his Venus in Taurus and his Jupiter right next to his Venus as well, and it's right on her midheaven. The midheaven in astrology deals with her public image, with Selena's public image and her success or career. Having the benefics on her midheaven indicate that he brings a lot of luck and growth and success to her, period. They have incredible alignment for just encouraging each other to grow, particularly him. He really inspires Selena to do more in her career and to follow her feelings, right? Because this Venus-Jupiter conjunction is not too far from her natal moon in Aries. So he really emotionally supports her. The moon in the 10th house, it's kind of conjunct her midheaven. She has the moon in the 9th, but it's conjunct her midheaven. Indicates that Selena is somebody who needs to feel emotionally connected to her career, but she can also go through significant ups and downs or cycles. She's not somebody who's going to be grinding every day. And clearly, she's a pop girly, but she doesn't perform every day. She's not making albums every other year. She definitely strikes when she feels like she's really motivated to do so. Another artist who's like this is Lana Del Rey. She also has this moon in the 10th house. And there is a very intuitive, go with the flow, see how I feel about what I want to do in my career at any given point, kind of vibe to the moon in the 10th house. And I do think that Benny fosters this energy but directs it a little bit better for her because these benefics are in Taurus. So Taurus really stabilizes her a little bit, and her public image is tied to stability. So it's something that she is meant to embody a little bit better over time, really kind of just embody a little bit more of that luxurious and consistent energy that we want from her so bad. A lot of her fans really want to see Selena more often, and they want to see her make more music more often. And that does seem to be something that he helps her out with. She does have her Mars in Taurus. There isn't a conjunction, but there is a co-presence, which indicates that Mars is a malefic, and it is mitigated by the presence and influence of the benefics in Benny's chart to help her to be a little bit faster with things. Mars and Taurus can indicate that she's, again, kind of a slower, steadier worker. Sometimes it can be a little bit of laziness, but it could also just manifest as she would rather work on one thing that's really high quality than make a lot of little things over time. And with his Venus-Jupiter conjunction, Jupiter's also the guide, the teacher, the wise one. He can really help guide her and shape her and grow her career and public image in the direction that she's really trying to go in a little bit faster. However, this Venus-Jupiter conjunction directly squares her sun in Cancer in the 12th house. She has a lot of internalized self-esteem issues or fear of the spotlight, or she may doubt herself constantly. The sun in Cancer is quite sensitive, and in the 12th house it can be a bit of a hermit, or can create a little bit of a fear of getting out of her comfort zone. So she may feel like she has to sound a certain way, or she has to stick with what she knows, or she may feel like even her public image is kind of out of her comfort zone. She might, she has often addressed the way that people criticize her voice and criticize her singing ability. And I do think with that sun in Cancer in the 12th house, like she's internalized a lot of that discourse as like, yeah, I guess I'm not really famous for something that I feel like I'm particularly the best at. And I think that with Benny's Venus-Jupiter conjunction, he really brings a level of optimism and excitement and support to her that can feel almost like gassing her up a little too much, or like she feels like he's glazing her. He feels like he's just not being genuine, like, or not being genuine, but almost kind of like that vibe where it's like your dad is obviously going to really support you because he's your dad kind of vibe, but in a relationship where she kind of feels like, well, you only say that because you know me and because you love me. Like, you don't, like, that's not actually true. So it does seem like Benny's like very significant support of Selena can feel to her as something that really kind of pokes at her own insecurities. And this could also go beyond just like career and into like maybe just like her beauty and public image. Like if she maybe struggles with like being seen in a certain light in the public eye, Benny's really going to help her with her confidence a little bit more, and stepping out of her shell a little bit more. And that can feel a little scary or off-putting to her at first. We also have his sun and north node in her 8th house. So this indicates that Benny coming into her life, first off, he probably did come into her life during a time of like tumultuousness, or maybe he's seen her through some dark periods. The sun in the 8th house really illuminates your darkest vibes. So it's like when you have a synastry with someone and their sun falls in your 8th house, like they're going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly and love you for it. But sometimes having somebody witness your darker moments can feel really vulnerable and intimate. And so, this sun does oppose Selena's Jupiter. So there is a sense of Selena feeling like he's seen her grow, or he's seen her go through some of the tumultuous periods that led to her growth. There's also some significant financial themes here. His sun in the 8th house opposing her Jupiter in the 2nd house. He's good for her money. He makes her more ambitious with the north node in the 8th house. Benny himself, I don't know if he's known as a very ambitious man, but he most definitely is. People with the sun north node conjunction are people who want to be the best. They believe they're the best. They can have a little bit of a God complex in that they are going to go far and they're going to go for it. They have like this inherent belief that they're meant for something big. And so they're much more willing to bet on themselves. The sun in opposition to her Jupiter, again, Jupiter in Virgo is a lot more cautious, and it indicates that Selena may tend to grow in directions that are typical, normal, or just like more or smaller. Like she might do things that kind of play it safe. And Benny's a bit of a dreamer. He dreams bigger. He's more, especially with his sun in the 8th house, which could indicate investments and money. I think that he encourages her to maybe think a little bigger and maybe do things or like invest in things that are a little bit more abstract, or maybe are out of her comfort zone in a creative sense. And I think that can feel both uplifting but also a little bit out of her comfort zone. And again, on a personal level and intimate level, it does feel like she feels like he's seen her through some darker periods, or seen her grow during times where she felt like she'd been humbled when we're dealing with Jupiter in Virgo. Now, his sun north node conjunction is in sextile to her Neptune-Uranus conjunction. It indicates that she sees him as a little bit of a mad genius. She feels like he brings and really works with the way that she's a little eccentric in her daily life. She has a 6th house, which could also deal with like her illness. The 6th house is house of sickness and illness. And like, maybe like some of the eccentric or strange ways that she lives her life. Neptune can deal with like her spirituality. I'm not sure if she's particularly like religious or spiritual. Maybe that's a big part of her daily life. But also Neptune could indicate like she might have some days where she's doing really well and some days where she's doing really bad. Maybe mentally or emotionally, maybe because of her illness, I'm not sure. But the sun sextile here indicates that Benny handles this like a pro. The sun in Pisces means that he's naturally someone who is very sensitive and emotionally intelligent. And with the North Node there, it's actually something he prides himself in. A lot of his ego comes from being artistic and flowy and cool and sensitive. And so having the sextile here indicates that he actually really enjoys her ups and downs in her daily life, and maybe even works with them and encourages her to go through them. It does feel a little intimate with the 8th and the 6th house. Again, we're dealing with maybe health issues, if she's had any recent surgeries, if she's felt like particularly vulnerable, or this could also deal with work, like the 8th house, like maybe fears around her job or her daily routines. He seems to be able to take the lead and guide her through these unstable periods or fearful moments pretty well. The other thing that's going on is he has a Moon-Pluto conjunction in Scorpio. So I don't know how he presents himself to the public, but he's definitely a little controlling and possessive, and maybe has some big emotions. Like his Pluto is retrograde though, which means I don't think that this is something that he externalizes to others as much as it's something that exists within himself. And what I mean by that is, with his Sun North Node conjunction, he's someone who's more likely to engineer the conditions for someone to love him, as opposed to just letting it happen naturally. Mainly because also with his Venus in Taurus, when we're dealing with someone with a Moon in Taurus and Venus in Taurus, or vice versa, the Taurus-Scorpio axis has a lot to do with owning things and possession. And so it does indicate that his love style, his emotional style is quite possessive, but it also means it's quite ride or die. So he's the kind of person where it's like once you're his, like he would do anything for you. That can come with a lot of intensity in that he, again, even with his Sun in her 8th house, Selena could feel like he stayed with her through a lot of her darkest moments, especially because his Moon is also conjunct her natal Pluto, where she could feel like maybe she owes him. And that might be, again, coming back to a little bit of the more manipulative qualities of this placement in his chart, especially since he has a Venus-Jupiter conjunction, is that he may present himself as extremely generous and sensitive and giving, which he may be, but he may also be doing that as a means to create dependence, or as a means to create like, see, I'm the only person who stays with you through thick and thin, which is a great quality to have in a partner. But he does have that Sun North Node conjunction, which can make him a little bit self-absorbed or self-motivated, especially in Pisces, which could indicate that he gets his ego from pretending to be a martyr or from over-giving as a means to kind of create a dependence, or like to make people really need him or value him without him having to say that. So he might not be somebody who necessarily brags, but he's definitely someone who creates the conditions to be seen as successful, or to be seen as loving and caring and always there for people. And this Moon-Pluto conjunction falls into Selena's 4th house. The 4th house is the house of her home and family, which indicates that there is something about his presence that soothes certain fears, but it also actually feeds into certain of her traumas. The Moon in the 4th house can indicate that Benny feels really comfortable and at home for her, especially with his Sun sextile to her Neptune-Uranus conjunction in her 6th house. She may be somebody who feels like her life is very tumultuous and like overwhelming. Pluto in the 4th house is not comfortable. Neptune, Uranus in the 6th house isn't comfortable. These are all indicators that Selena feels like her daily life and her like private life is very overwhelming, concerning, and almost too much for the people around her. Or like her energy comes in waves, or she comes with a lot of baggage with Pluto in the 4th house. And Benny, with his Moon in in Scorpio in her 4th house, and his Sun in Pisces, this is a Pisces trine. So his Sun trines her Pluto and it trines his Moon. It indicates that he has such a almost like I'll give you the shirt off my back vibe that makes her feel like he will be her, how do I explain this? Like he's like a boat that goes with her waves, instead of somebody who tries to control her waves or shame her for the maybe like moody nature of her daily life and her private life. However, this Moon-Pluto conjunction is part of a T-square. It squares her Venus, it squares her Chiron, it squares her Mercury, and it also squares her Saturn. So this means that this very nature of Benny being very ride or die, being somebody who will, again, see some of her worst traits or most difficult things and then offer empathy, first off, it's because he himself is somebody who is drawn to complexity. And he almost, again, his ego comes from understanding things that are abstract, with his sun in Pisces conjunct the North Node in Pisces. However, it actually directly feeds into a belief of Selena's that she is too much, because she has Venus conjunct Chiron in Leo, which indicates that she feels an insecurity around her beauty. She feels insecurity about her ability to be enough. She feels insecurity about, just like how much attention she's willing to gain. She can feel like she's too attention seeking, or people have told her she's dramatic. Her Mercury being there too indicates that there is some negative self-talk happening with her Mercury retrograde. She may often say things she doesn't mean, or maybe be a little dramatic at times when she didn't really mean to be so dramatic. His moon squaring these placements indicates that his ability to deal with her kind of tempestuous nature at times makes her feel almost like she needs him, right? Because there's a neediness whenever we're dealing with the moon. But also, like, he soothes her insecurities, but simultaneously triggers them. So this could be like, oh, like, this guy handles me really well, but also he's the only guy who could handle me really well. Or, like, I owe him because he handles me really well and he deals with me. So there's a little bit of, like, that, like, too much fear that he triggers in her. And I do think when we're dealing with a square, especially when Pluto is involved, we're dealing with power. I do think that Benny is aware of the subtle power influence that he has on Selena, but I don't think he'd ever comment on it or use it overtly. His Pluto is retrograde, so these aren't necessarily people who are power seeking. It seems more like he just enjoys the feeling of being needed. His moon squares her Saturn, which is actually a pretty stable placement. It actually helps there be some longevity to the connection. It also indicates that Selena feels a responsibility to Benny, and Benny enjoys that she goes out of her way to show him her commitment to him, which obviously she said yes to his proposal, so that makes sense. Her Saturn's in her 7th house, which is always going to delay marriage for her, but the moon square to Saturn indicates that Benny himself might be somebody who either waited for marriage or just also wanted to wait for a time in his life where he felt like he'd met somebody who was mature and actually matched him better. Then we have, his Mars-Neptune conjunction in Capricorn is on her Neptune-Uranus conjunction. So again, this also ties into the way that Benny really encourages and excites Selena to get out of her own usual comfort zone, ironically by creating more comfort for her. So again, she has a natal Neptune-Uranus in the 6th house, which means her daily life is kind of a mess. And it also means that she feels a lot of dependency, or like, because when we're dealing with Neptune, we're dealing with codependency. And the 6th house, again, like this could deal with like her illness, like her feeling like maybe her condition makes her really needy, or like makes people around her tiptoe around her, who knows. With Mars here, it indicates that Benny feels a sense of responsibility to her. His Mars is in its exaltation. He's a very hardworking man, and conjunct Neptune, he has very creative ways of going about making things happen or work, and that works really well with Selena. So I think that he's more the type of person of like, if they need to get a certain amount of things done in a day, other people might start to tiptoe and not really know how to assert themselves around her. She's a celebrity, so maybe, oh, we have to go to the studio today and record, but she's not feeling it, right? Benny's really comfortable with finding ways around that. I think that they actually recorded most of her album in their house together. That really aligns with this placement of like, okay, you don't want to go to the studio, that's fine. Like, what if we made it fun? What if we made it comfortable for you? What if we made it here in our room? You don't have to be in front of anyone who's like making you feel pressured. You could just make it here with us. Like, we're just going to have fun, right? Mars, Neptune. Like, let's just make it a little less serious, but ultimately working towards the bigger goal. So he really stabilizes her in these ways of bringing structure into her life in a way that feels whimsical or fun, without feeling controlling, right? So maybe other people in her life tend to fall into the realm of like controlling her or completely enabling her. Seems like Benny does try to find a way to lead her without pressuring her. We also have his Saturn-Uranus conjunction is on her North Node. She has this North Node in the 5th house. So a big part of her life journey is, in fact, to creatively inspire herself to creatively inspire the world and to grow into her creative inspiration and into her ego and into her talents. And his Saturn being on her North Node indicates that he is playing a role of a mentor. There's a lot of placements in his chart with her that indicate that he really stabilizes her and leads her without dominating her, and actually instead by going with her fluid nature. And that actually makes Selena feel a lot safer while also feeling a little dependent on him. The Saturn on the North Node indicates that there is a karmic connection here. It indicates that he might be older than her. Let me see. 1988. Okay, yeah. So there is an age discrepancy. Whenever there's like really heavy Saturn placements, I always wonder if there's a maturity gap. Even if it's not literally an age, it could just indicate that something about what Benny has accomplished in his life and his life experiences is directly tied into what Selena is meant to do with her life purpose. And with Uranus here, it indicates that he revolutionizes her life. Whenever he interacts with her, there's something about her life and experiences that happen with Benny that actually create the means for her to actually align with what she's meant to do, which I do believe that Benny was a producer of hers for many years, that I think that he helped her create some of her biggest hits. And so I do think that that really lines up with the way of, like, again, Saturn being somebody who has succeeded in that industry for a long time and has been able to create hit after hit. And then with Uranus there, it's like he brings that electric quality of really being able to electrify and push her really, really fast, very quickly. And in the 5th house, the house of creativity, and obviously they create music together. And on her North Node, which is like, that's what she's meant to do in this world, is to create art. And his Venus-Jupiter conjunction on her midheaven does indicate that he is definitely a bit of a creative mentor to her. That's definitely one of his biggest roles in her life long term. So I do think that he really works well for her. The only thing that I would be concerned about is that he might be so good that it actually feeds into Selena's fears that, you know, she owes him a lot because he's like such a good guy. And then I think on Benny's end, I think that he may, you know, become almost too attached to the need to be needed by her, which can create some codependency or like maybe subtle manipulative tactics that make him want to create situations that, you know, make her lean on him even more. But again, I don't think that's going to be overt because he has a Pluto retrograde. In terms of them being married, the fact that his Saturn's on her North Node and she has a really strong Saturn signature in her 7th house, really emphasizes that whoever she was going to marry was going to be somebody with a strong Saturnian and grounding influence in her life. It was definitely not going to be a Justin Bieber type. If this is in fact her chart, which I do think that it's actually a pretty reliable birth time, you know, her husband was meant to be somebody who mentored her and pushed her, and maybe someone older, someone who would ground her and was a stabilizing force. I could do a future spouse reading. I just did one for Taylor on looking at how the birth chart kind of tells us about the future spouse, what they might be like, how they might meet, all that kind of jazz, and like their timing. This is actually a reading I do offer, so if that's something you're interested in, when you go to my store, you could just pick future spouse reading for the specialty that you want for your reading. So that is all I have for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed that. Thank you so much. Bye.